Night in America, the House Judiciary Committee is going on a field trip, but not everyone is happy about it. Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan is seeking to highlight all the crimes New York District Attorney Alvin Bragg either ignores or minimizes. There are scores of felonies Bragg wants to reduce to misdemeanor status. And finally, we found at least one misdemeanor he thinks ought to be a felony. Hush money payments listed as legal expenses. What about robbery, you ask? What about murder, you ask? What about assault? District Attorney Bragg is not happy with Chairman Jordan or with this field hearing, so he is doing what many people who are not happy do, which is sue. House Democrats spent 4 years looking for a crime that did not exist. Alvin Bragg is ignoring crimes right in his backyard. If you're really doing a good job and you're confident in your record, what's to fear from a little field hearing? Joining us now is a member of the House Judiciary Committee and a former judge in the great state of Florida, Congresswoman Laurel. Congresswoman, thank you for joining us. You've been a litigator and you've been a judge. So who is the jury from a GOP perspective in this hearing, and what do you hope to convince that jury of?
Well, thank you, Trey. It's nice to see you again. The jury in this case, unquestionably, is the American people. And what we want them to see is the seriousness and the consequence of district attorneys like Mr. Bragg who are choosing not to enforce the laws. In his case, from the outset of his administration, he made clear that he simply wasn't going to prosecute certain crimes. And these are crimes that matter to the American people and to his community. Things like resisting arrest, robbery, trespass that absolutely affect the overall safety of a community. He's also implemented reckless bail policies that are putting recidivists and criminals who are repeat offenders right back out on the streets in the community. So we want to be sure that the American people knows this, sees this, and that they understand the effect that it's having on our country.
All right, Congresswoman, you mentioned so-called progressive prosecutors. In this particular case, it is hard for many people to separate Alvin Bragg from Donald Trump because he's the one that indicted former President Trump. Do you anticipate this being a one-off field hearing, or do you anticipate the Judiciary Committee going to other jurisdictions that have so-called progressive prosecutors and also highlighting the problems with their tenure?
Well, I do believe that this will be just one of the hearings of the Judiciary Committee where you see a focus on ensuring that the American people recognize the threat that we face when we have district attorneys who are not enforcing our laws. DA Bragg took an oath as the district attorney to uphold and enforce the law. He didn't run for public defender. He ran for district attorney. And that means that his job is to be not creating law, but enforcing it and keeping our community safe. So I do believe that there will be subsequent hearings in the Judiciary Committee that also focus on areas where laws aren't being followed. The American people really need to feel like our criminal justice system is fair, that all people are going to be treated equally under the law. And certainly that does not appear to be the case in Mr. Bragg's district.
All right. I know that you were a judge, which means you have to be fair. You also get to play a lot of golf if that's what you want to do, but you have to be fair as a judge. Put your old litigator hat back on. What is the best piece of evidence that what DA Bragg is doing is rooted in politics? I mean, some prosecutors just make mistakes on the law and the facts. They just make mistakes. This one seems rooted in politics, but if you were leading the prosecution on that point, what is your best piece of evidence?
Well, here's what I'll say, and I think you touched on it in the beginning. This is a prosecutor who we know is taking more than half of the felony charges that come into his office and downgrading them to misdemeanors. But in the case of Donald Trump, he's doing exactly the opposite. He's digging up an allegation from 2017 that at best would be a misdemeanor and contorting it into a felony charge. What's more is he's looking at this case, which has already been passed over by federal federal authorities who would clearly have a nexus for any type of investigation. So it appears just really, really politically motivated, and that is just not the message that we want to send to the American people. And as far as the Judiciary Committee is concerned, one of our important roles is ensuring that our criminal justice system across America is being utilized in a way that it is fair, that is effective, that is appropriate, and it is necessary for us to conduct oversight in cases where an issue might be proper for the development of future legislation. And so, you know, that and really putting a light on the failure to enforce the law and protect the community from violent crime, those are all of the things that we want to be sure that we're staying on top of.
Congresswoman Laurel Lee, I know that Jim Jordan is very happy and fortunate to have somebody with your background, litigator and a judge, on his committee. And thank you for joining us on a Sunday night. We hope that you'll come back and see us again.